Carnage in Somalia as fighting resumes. The government acknowledges a strong comeback by the Islamic courts. Is the country slipping further into anarchy, and what is the international community doing? This is Inside Story. Hello, I'm Jane Dutton. Fighting between the government and insurgent Islamic troops have killed at least 6 people in Somalia on Tuesday. Almost daily fighting in the country has killed an estimated 6,000 people this year alone. It's 16 years since Somalia had an effective government.
This is live in Somalia. Much of the country is without security, schooling and hospitals. Somalia has lacked an effective government since 1991, when warlords toppled dictator Siad Barre from power. A group of courts based on Sharia law ran the country until they were replaced with an Ethiopian-backed interim government last year. It's now struggling to maintain order in the face of Islamist insurgents. Earlier this year, the African Union promised Somalia some 8,000 peacekeeping troops to help stabilize the country. But the AU's forces are already stretched thin due to its large force in Darfur, and they have sent less than 2,000 troops to Somalia. Even getting information out of the country has become a struggle. 8 journalists have been killed in Somalia in the past year, and on Sunday, a French reporter was kidnapped outside this port town. On Monday, the UN's Special Envoy for Somalia made a plea for help to the Security Council.
Saudi Arabia, the custodian of the 2 Muslim holiest sites and a close-by neighbor with many Somali refugees, more than 350,000, should be invited to play a leading role. Due to its successful contribution to peace in previous conflicts, Saudi Arabia can help.
But international intervention in Somalia has a poor record. The United States pulled out of the country in 1993 after 18 members of its forces died there. UN forces left just 2 years later. It's been a year since a new government came to power, bringing with it hope that Somalia could change. But the country is still in chaos, and the international community looks on.
Well, joining our discussion today are our guests in London, Mohammed Guri, the chairman of Somalia Concern Group and Deputy Foreign Relations of Alliance for Re-Liberation of Somalia. Also in London, Ahmed Samatan, International Studies Professor and Dean of the Institute for Global Citizenship at Macalester College in Minnesota. Mr. Samatan, it seems as if we're witnessing an increasingly ferocious insurgency. Is the Union of Islamic Courts making a comeback?
Oh, the Union of Islamic Courts, or at least those who have supported them, have always been there. So the comeback might be in terms of the ferocity of the resistance, but they really never left the streets of Mogadishu, and the resistance now is even more than the Union of the Islamic Courts. It's increasingly becoming a kind of a national front.
Who do you think is funding them?
Well, the funding comes both from internal and external. Internally, the local communities pulling their resources together, and they cut across communities or kinship communities. But there are also resources that come from diasporic communities in almost all the continents of the world.
Mr. Guri, it seems that they are there to stay this time, and they're not going to give up with an even greater fight than before, considering the rather embarrassing departure from Mogadishu.
Yes, it is true. The resistance is not composed only the Islamic Court remnants. It's all Somalis who have been hurt, who have been displaced, who have been made refugees by the Ethiopians are fighting back. You will see the resistance has grown in numbers, grown in resources, and they are doing a wonderful job of removing the Ethiopians as soon as possible. So this is not only the Islamic Court, it's all the Somali people coming from all over the country, from north, from south, from east, from west, and they all want to remove the Ethiopian occupiers from their country.
Because the Ethiopians did say they would not only liberate the country, but once they'd done that, they would leave. But it seems like they are here to stay.
The Ethiopians, they're trying to stay, yes, but if you remember back in 24th of December, 2006, when they invaded Somalia, Meles Zenawi said, when we finish our job, we will leave within 3 days. We are not here to impose any government that the Somali people do not want. But these were lies, and today they are here, faced with a fierce fighting, and the Somali people and are determined to remove them. We have a long history with Ethiopians, and we know how to defeat them, and we will defeat them.
But Mr. Samatar, with this increase in fighting in Mogadishu, isn't this going to give Ethiopia more of a reason to stay in the country?
I think the first thing to note is that, as my colleague has said, the Ethiopians never intended to liberate Somalia. The Ethiopian primary project was to impose on the Somalis a particular kind of a leadership and government which most of the Somali people did not want, the transitional federal authority or government. That was the intention of the Ethiopian government, to put a client leadership state in Somalia. Now, in terms of the war that's going on now, even the Ethiopian Prime Minister has accepted the fact that it has turned into a quagmire. So the Ethiopians do not want to be humiliated and therefore leave the country humiliated, but they are finding themselves in conditions that are really unsustainable. And if it wasn't for the support of the United States in terms of resources, money and energy and other kinds of things, the Ethiopians would not have been able to sustain their effort in Mogadishu, let alone other parts of the country, for even a week.
Okay, the government has admitted that 80% of the country is not under the government's control. Who's controlling it then? Are we seeing an increasing witnessing of external influences, or is it the clan fighting playing out yet again on the soil?
Well, there are many parts of the country which have been relatively peaceful for a significant period of time, in which people have organized themselves, created a form of governance that has been able to fulfill the basic needs. One of those important places, an example of that will be the northern west of Somalia, which has called itself now a Somaliland Republic. But it's a peaceful place where people on the whole are trying to pick up the pieces, even though there are tensions in certain regions or segments of the north. The same thing in what's now called Puntland, the northeast. So there are many sectors of the Somali society and geographical zones that are relatively peaceful, and people have begun to knit together a form of governance that will address the local needs. It is in the capital city in Mogadishu and the surrounding areas, and maybe as far deep as Kismayo, where the great problems continue to exist, and where the Ethiopians seem to be putting their resources into, because they think if you are able to capture Mogadishu and you put into place a government that you want to have, then the Ethiopians think that they would have accomplished a significant part of their objective. But that seems to be not working out at all.
Okay, well, another plan that has been put forward by the UN is for the Saudis to get involved. Mr. Giri, what do you make of that?
I think that is a brilliant suggestion. I think if the Saudis are genuine, not only the Saudis, but any government or any organization that genuinely wants to help the Somali people overcome this current crisis and find some sort of political solution, because the Somali conflict is a political one. It's not a military one, and the Saudis can do a wonderful job, because the Somali people are very much linked to and respected the Saudi monarchy, and I think they can do a wonderful job in bringing the different groups together and finding a way out of these current problems. But if the international community continues to support the Ethiopian occupancy in Somalia, I think that will not work. It will only prolong the civil war, and it will take at the end to back to Addis Ababa, where they came from.
Okay, because the Saudis do have a long history of influence in the country, as does Eritrea. How should they be brought into this whole spectrum?
Well, the Eritreans are very much have a security problem. Eritreans are scared of the Ethiopians, and they really wanted to see Somalia come back in the region, because the balance of power in the region has been lost. And the Eritrean, not only Eritreans, also Djibouti is concerned. And everybody, all the countries in the region are concerned because the administration in Addis Ababa is not stable. It has fought almost all its neighbors in the past 15 years. And everybody needs the Somalia's strong Somali government to come back and counterbalance the Ethiopian threat to their security. So that's why Ethiopia, Eritrea and others are a bit interested to assist the Somali people overcome the current problems and free their country from the Ethiopian occupation.
Okay, let's leave it there for the moment. The UN says Somalia is facing Africa's worst humanitarian crisis. When we come back, we talk about the plight of thousands of Somalis who've left their homes to escape the fighting. Stay with us.